and this is the Stripe Hitman Challenge. So, Stripe is a common payment provider that's used by mom and pop shops. But it's also really nice because it can be used for handling stuff programmatically. If you're a developer, you don't have to go reintegrate credit card processing and stuff and get all these compliance checks done. So Stripe is your friend in this case. You can programmatically add stuff to a cart, pay for it, and all it does is redirect you to a Stripe site, which then says, hey, you're going to pay this person this much money. And I think that's a really nice thing to have as a developer. So for this challenge, our goal is to exploit the Stripe integration of this website. So in this case, we found a website that sells Hitman, but has a limit on how many you can purchase. Can you find a way to purchase 20 Hitman with a single account to get the bulk of them for free? That'd be pretty cool. And I have a link here for the service uses Stripe callbacks. Read the source code of the Node.js router. And here's some flow for how this stuff works. I actually remember what this link is. That makes sense. So as a developer, I said, hey, here's go to your invoice setup. Then there's a Stripe API, which invoice is created. The customer pays the invoice upon clicking that link. And once they pay for it, a webhook is called, aka it's like a callback function. So Stripe will call my website with a function and API called my choosing, which can then be used to update the customer state. If we go to the webhook best practices, it says handle duplicate events, only listen to event types your integration requires for, verify events are sent from Stripe, and this is probably the most important one. Particular verifying signatures from official libraries. So there's a signature that can be used here. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that can be done. That can be done incorrectly. In this case, if we go and look at the code for this, and there's only a couple of APIs, but the one that we'll see literally says to do perform signature validation, and it props it. The reason this signature validation is necessary is because Stripe is the only user that should be making this sort of request to us. If anybody else makes the request, then they're likely spoofing it. This would be really bad because if I can tell the website, hey, I paid for this, then you're in a bad spot. You shouldn't just be able to tell the website that you paid for something that you really didn't. And that's exactly where we're at with this. So the goal of this challenge now is to reverse this API in such a way that we can actually make the request to buy more Hitman than we actually should be able to. So if you want to trigger the flow, we'll probably have to reset the user. So I'll do user strikeout. And there are different ways you can make this request. I actually really prefer curl for doing this sort of thing, but that's just. I'm going to go buy Hitman. I don't know why they gave me an error, but I'm going to go buy Hitman. Buy Hitman. Okay. User does not exist. Oh, I know why. I need to go back to the index page because otherwise they'll be very confused because the user hasn't been created. Got it. So I'm going to do strikeout. I'm going to do strikeout, which will then create or redirect me and create the user that I want. Now if I do buy Hitman, it will send me to Stripe for a purchase I want to make. Now all the information we actually need for this is in here. Oops. So I can do this, and this is a test Stripe account, so it's totally fine. You can do whatever you want with this. 0125 777 blah blah, bunch of numbers. Cool. All right. So dump save. And at this point, it's going to trigger that webhook that we're talking about. The purchase of the hitman has succeeded. And it will now redirect us back to our page. So we can see that we have an order ID of 5. We have the stripe link here. We check to see if we win. And it appears that we did not. Sad. So now it's for the fun part. How do we actually make this request? Well, we can actually go and look at this object right here that we have. We can see that it's looking for a request that's application JSON. And then we start to process the body. Cool. So if we go to curl, which is a program that allows us to make requests, we can do the domain, which in this case is going to be this, I think. I'm actually not 100% sure what it's currently set up as. If I click did win, what does this go to? 5,000. Got it. So we're going to do 5,000. Now we need to figure out the endpoint for that. The endpoint for this code is going to be webhook. So / webhook. This is a post request. And we need to make this JSON. So we're going to do header content-type application / JSON. So cool. We're missing a body. That makes sense because we haven't attached a body to it yet. So we can do body maybe? Nope. Data. Cool. So now I pass in some data and it's going to be like, hey, you're still, it says missing body. So now we are missing an object that says body. So because this is JSON, we're going to need to format it that way. So I'm going to do body empty object. Whoops. Cool. So now it said that we're missing type within body. So I guess I will body is an object, and I am now going to add type here, and we'll have another nested object. I did that incorrectly. So we have body, then we have type. Maybe that's it. Unknown type. So we can look at the source code and figure out why it's saying that. If you go to the source code, this is a stripe thing. Within the request body and the type of this, the type is the type of stripe interaction that has occurred. In this case, we are looking for checkout session completed. So we can set the type of our to be that, so that completed. Cool. So we're missing data within in body. And we can try another nested object and see what happens. Maybe it's not a nested body. So data. Cool. So we're missing data.object. What that means is we need object. So we can make another nested call here. And it is erroring out. That's great. Well, we can look at the source code to see why it is errored out. Something I should probably fix before the event. So we have data, we have data object, and then we have object.metadata. Cool. Metadata. I'll just make that a string. I probably put too many of these nested things here. Cool. So now it's looking for a payment ID. And if you remember from before on the page, we already have a payment ID. This is 5. So we're going to go back here. And we can have another object in here, I suppose. And we're going to do payment ID. We can set this to 5. Ah, successfully bought. Sick. We could change this. I'm actually not sure if there are duplicate checks on this. There are not. So we're going to want to do this over and over again. And it's just going to keep buying the stuff and buying the stuff and buying the stuff. So the goal is to get this to 20 times. And now we've bought the same Hitman 20 times for the price of 1, which is pretty sick. We've been able to send this request, even though Stripe should be the only one that should be able to do this. This is a classic authentication, authorization type issue. Now, if we go back here and we do did win, we'll notice that we did win. It sent us the flag, we have done this. So the takeaway from this challenge is that we need to be able to look at the code and figure out the request format. We can see that it's looking for the type, and then there's data, and we figure out how to actually nest the data properly. After we've nested the data, we can make the request with our ID, and we'll make it over and over again. Now, the real vulnerability here is the lack of checking of this validation here. I think that's a pretty cool thing to find. Yeah, so that's the Stripe integration challenge. Stripe has done nothing wrong here. It was actually kind of hard to make this vulnerable, to be honest. But this is a vulnerable implementation or usage of the Stripe API. A lot of vulnerabilities just aren't in the implementation of something by itself. It's when you start combining and using other components. So thanks for watching.